flexible with us. We're trying to figure that out. We'd like to, if it started at 5:30 tonight, probably half of you would have been here. So, again, appreciate the patience. We're trying to figure out and fine tune these things. So, welcome to ACAP. This is our third event, and so we're so excited to have you here. There's another challenge, activities going on, but we hopefully feel like we have a good subject matter tonight, so we're excited to share that with you. As you know, and how many of you have been here before? Nice return, thank you for coming. Those who are new, thanks for showing up. We are wondering how to apply that. And so, hopefully, as you registered, you kind of gave us that feedback. That's super helpful for us to really continue to grow this opportunity. As you know, it's a free opportunity. Share with your friends and family, share with your neighbors, share with anybody who you know. Great resource that's available to this community. So, to help and launch this resource, we have a leadership team that was built, and they're behind the scenes doing this on a voluntary basis. And so I'd like to give a nod and a shout out to those people that are here. We've got Leo, we've got Rebecca. There's Rebecca, Jennifer, Emily, myself. We have two people, Janet and Bill, Robin. Registration, Megan, thank you. Look around, there's just a lot of food. Missing a couple folks tonight. So that's the crew that over the last 6 months has really helped build ACAP into what it is. So give them a little round of applause. Yeah. Also, whenever you launch an organization, it takes some time and also resources. And so for that, we have some very entrepreneurial sponsors that have stepped up and said, hey, we will support you for the next year, either by program, which is once a month, or by the year. And so the four core sponsors, as you can see behind me, have stepped up for the year to really support us. And that helps us pay for this room, helps us pay for our social media and the presence that we have in this community. So we have Centerwell, which is Janet. Thank you, Janet. We've got Lori Shanahan, Lori Realty. We have Emily with the funeral home. Thank you, Emily. And Lisa. So thank you for those four. And then tonight, we actually have a program sponsor. So every month, if people want to step up and support the program for the night, we offer them that opportunity to do that. We also get a 2-minute infomercial on who they are and what they're doing. So we thank all of those who stepped up today. And tonight, Jennifer, come on up, just to give her a little 2-minute info on who she is and what she brings to them.
I'm so glad it's a smaller crowd because I was not going to do cards and a microphone. And I'm going to do cards, otherwise I'll go on something. So Sycamore Reserve Independent Living, we're over in Castleton between Community Hospital North and Fishers. We're going to talk back off of 80 seconds. Sometimes that can be a little bit of a non-starter for some people. We've got an outdoor pool and a beautiful trail that leads to the Nickel Pig Trail, and I'm going to get back to my cards after everything. We provide a safe place for seniors to enjoy their golden years with dining, housekeeping, and transportation. Some included senior living is just a senior apartment, a safe place where you can meet with other people, but they don't have services. We have a lot of services. We have 24-hour security. There's always someone available to come to the gate of a resident who has pushed their pendant and help them determine next steps. We can't always help them by picking them up, but we can sometimes aid them on deciding what to do next. We're family owned and operated, which is very rare in senior living. And I mentioned our saltwater pool outside. We have a fishing pond, a cutting green. We have a beautiful fitness center and our lower level exercise classes 6 days a week. They're all around 10:30, 11 o'clock, so no one has to break their sleep and wake up at the break of dawn. We have happy hour for Friday with live entertainment. That's a big goal. We have a lot of activities and outings, and our residents are lovely and funny and welcoming. They always love having new people join them. Tonight's topic really supports what we do in independent living. A lot of what people can do in their home, you can't necessarily combat loneliness and isolation. So you can get home care, you can get some dining brought in, whether that's meal prep or food delivery, you can get somebody to come and do housekeeping. But to combat isolation and loneliness, it's very difficult. So senior living, independent senior living, call it a gateway drug. It's something safe to hopefully prevent more falls and prevent people from doing things that are going to get them in trouble later on. But also it's very active and very social. A recent Surgeon General's advisory states the mortality impact of social disconnection is tantamount to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That's pretty amazing. And it's true. I can tell you that isolation and loneliness, you know, seniors are a target when they're isolated and lonely. I have a lady named Mary that just moved in last month, and she was convinced by a scammer who approached her romantically for many months. She was convinced to go to the Social Security office not once but twice and transfer all of her money over to him. And it took her quite a while to get it back. So we're really happy that she got it done and she's in the safe space. But I asked her daughter, why did she think that happened? Absolutely, she said loneliness. So this is a great topic and a great thing to think about. Thank you.
Last announcement, we also have volunteers that support us, and we've got, as you can see, a social media photographer today, Eli, and back, it was just incredible. Fenway Park is helping me with technology, and so as you've seen us evolve, we're evolving into this iPhones, and this will eventually be streamed, but we're practicing right now. And so all of the programs will be uploaded soon, so that you can see them. So if you missed them, they'll be on our website, and you can look at them through YouTube and watch them. If you missed something, or you really want to say, "Hey, I really missed that idea," but I appreciate Fenway and his ability to kind of put all this together, and we appreciate him for that. So Fenway, thank you very much. And our goal is to be able to kind of do this in a hybrid format. So give us some time to work on this tech, make sure that it works right. We want to have a good production before we actually launch this in the streaming kind of way. So thank you for that. Now I'm going to turn it over to Leo, because he's going to introduce our speakers tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nick. So my name is Leo Rapel. I am very fortunate to be a part of this leadership team. My day job, I work for the IU South Cancer Center in a program called Everyone Cancer Now. And I'm really excited about this topic. I've known Barb for a long time. I've known Noble for a long time. Full disclosure, Noble is the favorite cousin of my current wife.
Current wife.
Anyway, this especially hits close to home because Amy and I were the primary caregivers for her father, and I came to his house one day to do our regular caretaking thing, and he was on the phone, yelling into the phone. His wallet was out. He had his Social Security card, his VA card. His girlfriend was there with her Social Security card, VA card. And I looked at the closed caption phone, and they had been on the phone for over 20 minutes. And this guy just kept asking for their numbers, and thankfully they didn't see very well, and they didn't hear very well. And he was irritated, so he was cursing and not giving any numbers. And so, you just never know. And this, we were there all the time. And we were just talking about Stacy with the closed captioning one, these goes. Anyway, but you don't know how those other devices can help you with knowing kind of what's going on. So Noble has been, he's been at Chase Bank so long, he was there with his American Fletcher National Bank. When I was 7, I started my school account with like 15 cents. And he wasn't there then, but shortly thereafter he joined. And he is now enjoying retirement. And he and I were talking about just some of the situations that they encounter in the bank that we see, we're watching American Greed or we're watching these, these shows, we see them, but they really are happening right here in the He's going to talk about that. And then Barb and I have known each other for many, many years. She spent a lot of her career with Indy. And she has worked for the Attorney General's office. And then when I guess senior fraud became not a priority of them, she sought out other opportunities. So she works for the Indiana Association of
Area
Agencies on Aging. So it's an I with 4 A's. And she's going to talk about the situations with fraud and the situations about, that we may not expect. And through the two of them, you'll be able to learn about things to watch for and hopefully ways you can kind of avoid these kinds of situations. So I'm really excited to have the two of them here to be able to talk about this tonight.
All right. Hey, good evening, and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm going to start out with a couple of stories. All of them, but one, are really true life stories that I heard every single day at the bank. And so it's really personal to me, to our family. And every day at what I did at the bank impacted our day. The story at Chase was we have seen a huge decrease in bank robberies. Bank robberies, you're lucky if you're going to walk out with $1,000, $2,000 for a potential felony. But what we have noticed drastically going up is fraud and scamming. And fraud is not what it used to be. It used to be a weird guy in mom's basement on a computer who knew more about computers than us. And that's what it was. And today it is a $1 trillion network out there, and it impacts everybody in our neighborhoods and our families every day. So, excuse me, I'm going to start with a story about a guy named Al, and I'll read this in his own words. So I'll do a little bit of reading. So here's his story. The text came in just 1 week before a memorial service and a picnic for an old friend. It said, "Are you free tomorrow? We're going to have a barbecue." Well, I normally ignore unsolicited texts, but this seemed legit. So I wrote back, "You mean Jack's picnic?" No, Griffith Park at 1 p.m. It's always good to meet new people," the text said. The author said, "My name's Daisy Miller, and I'm 37 years old. How about you?" Al wrote back, well, he took 10 years off of his age, of 82. And so it began. A chance encounter with a woman who claimed to own a business owner, followed by a video of a cookout, and it really began to feel real. Our relationship began 76 days later, by my reckoning. By then, my life savings would be gone, and my family was battered with mistrust and fear. Within the next few days, though, Daisy said she wanted to spend her birthday with me, and many glamorous pictures began to appear on my phone. Well, then our text moved from budding romance to business. She would text that she believed there were many beautiful things waiting for us, but meanwhile, I should join her in investing in short-term gold futures. I was lonely, became gullible enough to fall for all of this, despite all of the red flags waving in my face. What made it so believable was that she took pictures of herself in different places around town, different places she was visiting. We even cooked a meal together by text and screenshots. I did have some suspicions, and I tried to vet her out with the police department and Google reverse image, but I found nothing. Daisy suggested I invest some gold options to hedge myself in an uncertain economy. She even sent me a screenshot showing she had made $78,000 the previous night through a website called SunX. Now, SunX was a legitimate company, but what Al did not know is their reputation had been tarnished by cyber criminals. So one night at dinner, I finally decided to tell my daughters, Jenny and Jessica, about Daisy, which, by the way, is very unusual. One of my daughters said, "Well, I hope you're not going to do any trading with her, as one of my best friends had a parent who was wiped out lost everything, and ended up committing suicide. I was blind and continued to be blind to all of the warnings and the red flags. Daisy pushed me to start trading. I told her I was willing to risk $20,000. So I went to my financial advisor. I told him I was buying a car. First night went by, and I was pretty excited when I looked. The next day I had made over $1,900. This is the joke. Daisy used that to convince me to invest another $70,000, and I told my financial advisor this time, I'm going to help my daughter start it. A week later, I called my financial advisor and I was withdrawing the rest of my money, $133,000 from my son. He was going to look after it for me. The final transaction is the one that hurts the most. I took out a $20,000 loan to add to the money already invested because Daisy continued to convince me I could increase my profits even more. Online, my earnings continued to grow and grow. The scheme finally collapsed. I called my nephew Alex, who's a software engineer, and we discovered that the Sun X account that I was sending money to was fake. My money had been funneled directly to the. I lost all of the savings I had. I now only get by my Social Security check and pension, but I've had to sell a few things off to keep afloat. The chances of recovering any of this money is zero. Then another story I have from one of my branches. So what I did was I was a market director. I oversaw 18 branches on the north side. The next story is about a lady named Karen who was in her mid-60s, and she came in. And it is not to talk about Chase, but as big as Chase is, and as good as I believe the fraud department was, whenever we made great strides, I always felt like the scammers were always one step ahead. And so they used to send people in with just information that they had told them on the phone. This next story, Karen comes in, and we do training for the employees there. She wanted to withdraw $30,000. And the teller noticed that was basically her entire balance with Chase. And so the red flag went off, and the teller began trying to ask conversations, because usually when someone is going to buy a car or do something exciting, right, down payment on a house, they're excited to share it. When someone scams, they close up a lot, and actually great people, intelligent people become very defensive about your questions. Why are you asking? We have people say, it's my money, why are you asking? Why do I tell you? You know, things like that. So the teller did. The teller ended up getting the branch manager involved and just said, hey, I just want to introduce you. She's getting ready to make this withdrawal. She's not answering, you know, any of the questions. We ID'd her. It was her. She eventually said she's doing some home improvements. And like we had not really seen this before, but she actually had an estimate on home improvements that the scammers had emailed her to say, when you go into the bank, if you get questions, show them this, and they'll back off. And ultimately, it is your money. And ultimately, there are times when you deny the transaction, but you know this did seem very real. She lost. She came in several days later, and the money was gone. A similar situation where scammers, and we'll talk kind of a little bit about kind of the pressure they put on, but they had actually convinced another lady, a widow in her late 70s, to come in and just, her account was in jeopardy, and just transfer your money to this account. And we tried to convince as hard as we could that you're transferring it out of an account in your name into an account with someone else. They're gonna hold it until things get cleared. And we find it very difficult to let them think we're right and they're not. They get very defensive. So, but we would see this. So I oversaw 18 branches, and not overemphasizing the number, but hardly a day would go by where I wouldn't get multiple of these coming in our branch. And every day they just seemed to grow, and it took more and more time to try to sit the person down and talk with them. And in a lot of cases, we couldn't talk them out. They felt very. So there's a lot of different kind of scams out there. And then personally, like I said, very intelligent people who feel like they have common sense, who have worked all their life to save this money. They're getting hit. They're at a vulnerable point. The word loneliness was mentioned earlier. Very lonely, very vulnerable. And these scammers, I will tell you, are absolute professionals who are well trained. They're well scripted. They're prepared to make these phone calls, and they do. And they they take advantage of the situation. So I'll turn it over to Barb.
Okay, well, I have been doing this job part-time for 17 years. And I was at an event over the weekend and this lady came up and said, "You're the Medicare lady," because I'm actually paid to talk about Medicare fraud, which amounts to $90 billion a year, which is 10% of the Medicare budget. And people, I say, well, how does Medicare fraud happen? Well, people get a hold of your Medicare number and they do it at events, you know. I have a friend who says our events that we do for seniors are like trick or treating, because what they really want is the whatever giveaway you have. And if it's a nice giveaway and you ask for their social security number or their Medicare number, they'll cough it up. So that's how it starts. A lot of it happens through telephone calls. You know, we were talking, several of us talking earlier, that it's hard to tell a senior not to answer the phone if they don't recognize the number. Because when I grew up, we didn't have a phone when I was a kid. When we got a phone, it was party line. Say that to a millennial and their eyes will start rolling around. But we had 8 people on our party line, and that meant when someone else was on the line, you couldn't use it until they hung up. Now, I say it was like the original Facebook, because that's how you found out what was going on with your neighbors. If you were really good and really careful, you could pick up that phone, and not that I ever did that, but I know people who did, all right? So given that, and people my age, to tell them not to answer the phone is just blasphemy. A, they're lonesome. B, they're curious. C, they think they're too smart to be scammed, if that's what it is. So they'll answer. And what happens, those computers that they use now can dial 10,000 numbers a minute. And when you answer that phone, it tells that computer, this is a good number. And it's a good time to call because somebody answered the phone. And do you know what they do with those numbers? They sell them to the scammers. Because they answered that line, they're going to answer another. A lot of times you will hear them say, if you wish to be removed from our list, press 1. Don't ever press 1. All that does is say to that computer, it's a good number, it's a good time to call, and this dummy does whatever I ask them to. So those numbers go for more money. All right? So what we say to seniors is, and they'll come up with all sorts of reasons they absolutely have to answer the phone. It might be the doctor's office. I'm expecting a call. The kids will call. All you have to do is change the message on your phone and let your family know. Let the message say, you have reached so-and-so. We don't answer the call. The numbers we don't recognize. Please leave a message and we'll return the call at our convenience. What a novel idea. But that's hard for seniors. So instead, we tell them answering the phone for a number you don't recognize is as bad as picking up a hitchhiker. And they can relate to that. But these phone calls and these scams, a lot of them start by phone. And you'll get that phone call. It's a call you did not initiate. That's the first red flag. Then they tell you something that scares the pants off of you, like your account has been compromised, or your credit card has been denied, or there's a warrant out for your arrest because you didn't go to jury duty or something like that. Or I'm from Medicare and I'm going to send you a new card, but I need to know that you're on my list. So give me your Medicare number and I'll check and make sure you're going to get the new card. And they'll spit out that Medicare number in a heartbeat. That's how it starts. Then once they get that Medicare number, they can bill Medicare for things that weren't provided. 3 years ago at Christmas, the big thing was catheters. People were calling us to say they read their summary of benefits and Medicare had paid $25,000 for catheters, and this person didn't use catheters. But Medicare didn't know that. They had an order from a doctor that they'd paid $20 or $25 to for these supplies, and they would bill Medicare for them. They put the kibosh on it. That cost $3 billion in 3 months. about 3 years ago around Christmas. I don't know anybody who put catheters on their Christmas list, all right? Once they shut that down, then the new thing was people were calling us and saying, I just see where they paid Medicare for colostomy supplies, and I don't use them. Another one was back braces, and this has been on local TV. Kara Kenny has covered it several times. But you'll get a call or a text. I've had these. And I got a call one day. I was working on the computer, and I do volunteer work, and I always ask for sponsorships. So I answer the phone, even though I tell people not to. And I answered the phone, and it said, this is Medicare. We've noticed you've been having treatments for back pain. Walk into a group of people my age and ask how many have had back pain, and the hands will go up. It'll create a wind turbine in there. All right. So they would say, we will send you a free back brace. Well, seniors love free. There's nothing we love more than free. So yes, I want that back brace, even though my doctor hasn't ordered it. And if you get it, it's something that you might get from Walgreens or Walmart over the counter. So what's the value? Why wouldn't I want something free? It's not costing me anything. Well, it is. It's our money that pays for Medicare. But if you take a free back brace and it doesn't help because it wasn't fitted to you, then you talk to your doctor and say, I need a back brace, I think. And he sends you to an orthopedic specialist who fits you for one. You can get one, but guess what? Medicare might not pay for it because they show you've already gotten a back brace. So the back brace, knee brace, all of those scandals, they keep coming and going just like the weather, all right? What we tell people is how you can stop Medicare fraud is, first of all, don't give out your Medicare number. Second, read that dry, gaggy Medicare summary notice that you get. Used to be once a quarter. Now they're cutting it back. It's only going to be once every 6 months. But you can beat that by signing up to Medicare.gov, and you can see online when something's been paid, as well as there's lots of other information there about the drug plans and so forth. And then the last thing we say, if I had a badge, it would say protect, detect, and report. They won't give me a badge. They won't give me a gun. So I have to do it like this, okay? Report it. And I used to tell people, call your doctor. And they were like, I don't want to call my doctor. I might make them mad. And they're God, and we can't do that. So then they would say, call Medicare. Well, then that could be a long phone call. And then finally I say, call us. My boss doesn't get a badge or a gun either. But what happens if you think you've been a victim of Medicare fraud, or your patient has, give us the information. We don't go through the Medicare channels. We go right to the Inspector General. And that's how they start looking for trends and start going after the guys. And they do prosecute these guys. They prosecuted the one company that was doing the catheters and did recover some of the money, but a lot of it's been gone. So to talk about stories, because I've done this, I do presentations before the senior movies. And so I'll be at some event, and this, like last week, and this lady came up and said, you're the Medicare lady. Or I'll be at an antique show and somebody will say, there's Barb, that's the fraud lady. So that's okay. But about 4 years ago on Easter Monday, I had a call from a woman, and she said, is this Barb Miller? Are you the one that speaks at the funeral home at the senior movies? I said, yes. She said, I think I've been scammed. And my heart just stopped. And I said, tell me what happened. She said, well, I got a call that I had won sweepstakes, but I had to send $2,500 to make sure my application was correct. And she said, I did, and it was. So they called me back and said, yes, you're qualified. And now we're going to process the application. Anyway, this went on for 3 or 4 days. And this woman was convinced she had won $250,000. They called her the last time and said, we need $15,000 to pay for the 2 people who are going to fly in and bring you your check. And they'll be at your house on Good Friday. And she said, you know, I'm out of money. I don't have any more money in my bank account. But if you come and bring the money, I will go with the bank with you and we'll cash that check and I'll pay you then. She waited all day on Friday for somebody to show up with a check before it dawned on her that she'd probably been a victim of a scam. And she was. And I had to tell her there's probably no way I can get that money back. She said, I know that. I've already written that off. What I want you to tell me to do now is, how can I stop it? How can I prevent him from getting anything else that I have? And we talked about doing a security freeze and calling the Attorney General's office and the FTC and the, you know, everybody that's got a website. And she did that, but she was out her life savings. Mm-hmm. So another instance, and this was a guy on his computer. He was working and something popped up that said, stand by for an important message. And he waited, and next thing there was a message from BMO Bank. And that was his bank. And they said, your account has been compromised, but we're working on taking care of it. We want you, though, in the meantime, to transfer your money to this safe account while we work on protecting your account. And he did. Mm-hmm. And $11,000 was gone in a heartbeat because he clicked on a link. Yeah. Another big one, and you've talked a little bit about the romance scam, and I have some experience with that. My husband died 5 years ago last month. And of course, the kids and the grandkids are all posting, Grandpa died, and this is the arrangements and so forth. And guess what? Suddenly, I got a text from a guy in the military who happened to be stationed in Afghanistan, who had seen my Facebook profile and thought I was the bee's knees. And he wanted to be friends. And so I looked him up. There were 100 Facebook profiles with that same name, which told me that guy'd probably been hacked. One of the Facebook profiles was from the actual general who he was pretending to be. And the general posted, this is General so-and-so. I am married. My wife's in the military. I have 3 kids in the military. I am not looking to meet a woman online. I wanted to go back to the first guy and say, you know, if you hadn't been trolling for widow women online, you could have done a better job getting our people out of Afghanistan. But that's the way it starts. Yeah. These contacts come to you, and I still get them online, not as much as I used to, but I get a pop-up from somebody that was in the military, and I'll tell you how that goes. If you respond to that, in about 3-4 weeks, they're in love with you. And in another 3 or 4 weeks, because they're overseas, they can't access their bank account. Mm-hmm. So they need some money. And the last one I saw that was on CBS that reported this lady had $3 million. She was living very well in Florida. She met this guy, love of her life. The first thing he asked her for was $45,000 to renew his professional license because he was overseas. And she sent that. And the relationship kept going. And so did his need for money. And by the end of the story, he had tapped out her entire $3 million life savings. Mm-hmm. She was living on Social Security. And the interviewer said, why did you come forward with this? Because she said, I want to protect other people. I want to stop them from being a victim like I was. And it's not just women. There was a doctor in Florida who he had millions, and he met a lady online. I'm not sure how that came about, but anyway, they were talking, and it was the best relationship he'd ever been in. And so he said to her, I'd like to see a picture of you. And sure enough, here came a picture. And then after a few more chats, he said, would it be possible for us to talk, on Facebook Live or whatever they call it? And so sure enough, up popped this image of a girl. They were talking online. And guess what? She tapped out everything that he had, and it turned out she was a prostitute who had been hired by these scammers to talk to him and to chat with him And I'm sure she was paid very well because
Mm-hmm.
they make good money at this. And just about the time we think we've seen the last of it, it's not over. All right. One of the big ones now is, and I've heard this personally from two people. They were, one of them was called, I'm not sure about how the first one was, but hers went on for several days. The second one was going to sign up for Netflix, and she Googled Netflix, and you know what happened? You get a list this long. She clicked on the first one, and she's talking to the guy, and he said, oh my gosh, I see that you've got 15 people on your Netflix account. That's fraud, and I'm going to have to turn you in and prosecute you. And she said, no, I'm not on Netflix. I'm calling to get on Netflix. And he said, oh, I must have the wrong account. So he waited a minute, and he looked, and he said, you know, you've got kiddie porn on your computer, and that's against federal law. And she said, oh my gosh, she said, what can I do? And he said, well, it's not my job, but I do have some free time and I'm good at this. He said, for $5,000, I will get you off of Netflix and get you off of this kiddie porn site. And she said, okay, I need to go to the bank and tell them what I'm doing. He said, no, do not go to the bank and say anything. They don't want you to talk to anybody. Don't go to the bank and say anything because they know it's a federal crime. They will have to call law enforcement and you will be arrested right there in the bank in front of everybody that's there. Who would want that? So she said, well, I'll call the sheriff and tell him what's going on so that doesn't happen. He said, I'm telling you, do not call anybody. Just go to the bank and get the $5,000 and we'll go from there. Well, she was so intimidated by him and by him telling her not to put down the phone. She said, I need to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. She went next door to her neighbors and called the sheriff and asked about it. And the sheriff said, no, hon, that's a scam. Do not do anything with that. But a lot of people don't take that next step. They don't do that. They are they're convinced they've won the lottery or that their grandson is in the hospital in somewhere. You know, I live in Johnson County. Our former sheriff used to post all of the scams. That was where I first heard about the romance scam. And I saw the story, and this lady had lost $85,000. And I thought, at least she wised up before she lost everything. And I was telling the story at another retirement facility, and this little lady raised her hand and she said, that was my friend, and she didn't wise up. She said that was all she had. And by the time she realized that she'd been scammed, it was too late. So, they come at you. Like he said, they're very good. They're very smart. They make a great living at this. They hire, I've heard, I don't know that this is true, but a lot of these people that are making these calls are being trafficked. They're in Nigeria or the Philippines or someplace, and they're trafficked in order to try to get to the United States, and that's what they do. They teach them. If they're not good at it, they let them go. If they are good at them, they keep it on.
Yeah, I would say, just kind of give you an idea, I mentioned earlier, this is no longer just a weird guy in his mom's basement. There was a show on Discovery Channel a year or so ago that I watched, and it showed like office buildings downtown. That one was in Jamaica and one was in Israel. And you open the door, and it's a big open floor. It looked like any other business that you would expect to see, with small cubicles and people with headsets. And they're working on what's called an auto dialer, and the auto dialer is dialing thousands of numbers, and then as soon as you pick up, it shoots the person with the headset over to you. Again, these people are scripted. They're ready for the call. They're ready to talk with you. They're ready to instill the fear of God in you. Something has happened to your account, but don't worry. I've got a safe account here at Chase. We're going to move your money over to you. I just need you to do that. And people do it. They hit you with, there's two types really. The one that hits you with sudden fear. On an average day, you pick up the phone, you think things are going well, and someone tells you something serious about your account. And then the romance scams, which sometimes go on and on, they build this trust and rapport with you. So it is like, it's like its own business where people are on this dialing system, and as soon as you answer, they flip over to you. The other things I wanted to talk about that we saw at the bank was if you're like me and you grew up writing checks, and people older than us love to write checks and they don't want to go online, they say things like, well, I don't want to go online. I don't want my stuff to be out there. I would have to say, well, your stuff is out there. It's just who's looking at it? You or them, right? And they want to write checks, and senior people would come in and you look at their account and it was just check after check after check. And I just want to say that's very dangerous. Obviously, think about the things that a person has when they steal a check out of your mailbox or from the post office. They have your signature, they have your account number and your routing number, which are the only two things they really need to really scam a certain transaction out of your account. They have your handwriting, they have your address, they have absolutely everything. And so we would try to get them online, which sometimes was great and sometimes was a struggle, but you need to be looking at your accounts on a regular basis from home, making sure, and that's one great way that you can do that. Checks are a little bit dangerous these days, and probably one of the things you really want to get away from. You know, banks offer online bill pay services, like I know we did, where we would send a check, but that check did not have your personal account number on it. It had your name and your address, and if it was going to your gas company account number on it, but it could never be used as fraud for you guys. And scammers will steal your check, and they'll what they call wash it, which is they can take certain information off, and now with computers and printing, they can print a whole new set of checks as if they were you. And so, you know, there was a lady that came in who says, I've always written checks and dropped them in the blue mailbox on the corner. I thought it was safe. But one morning, my life was turned upside down. A bill that I knew I had paid showed up that was overdue. I checked my bank account, and my heart skipped a beat. The check I'd mailed me cash for a much higher amount, more than I'd written it for. Apparently, scammers had erased it and rewritten it for thousands more in their own name. My bill wasn't paid, and to make matters worse, the scammers drained my account by printing other checks for us. Other things that are going on, very relevant, is that they're able to call you, and your phone, your ID, your caller ID will say Chase Bank, BMO, or whatever. Don't ask me how they get that done, but a quick example that happened in my life was we were at a wedding. My daughter and I are standing outside the church waiting for the bride and the groom to come out. She gets a call from Chase. Happened to be, you know, my kids banked at Chase. They knew better. And so she said, hey, this is a call from Chase. I'll take it. And she took it, and it was a scammer. And she, I guess from hearing stories from me or living with me or whatever, she goes, hey, this just doesn't sound weird. And I said, let me have your phone. And I said, tell me where you're calling from. He said, I'm calling from Chase Bank about this account. I said, okay, I happen to be on her account at that time. So I said, and I think this is the thing, we want to try to put them on, if we're going to answer the phone, and I agree, most time we really shouldn't, we need to put them on pause and not do, because their goal is they're going to instill fear into you right away, which makes you then want to act right away, right? And so she was smart enough to kind of put it on pause, hand me the phone, and it's okay to ask a lot of questions, right? When you go to the bank, we ask you a lot of questions to identify you. It's okay for you to ask a lot of questions. And so I said, hey, I know you've got her, if you're from Chase, I know you've got her account pulled up. Tell me what her last deposit date and amount was. Click. The guy hung up. He did not have her account pulled up in front of us. So it's okay to think about what kind of questions do we want to ask them, right? I want to verify you. You're this person from this company. I want to verify you and make sure we're right. But the truth is this, my real coaching on this would be say, thank you for the phone call. I'm driving to my bank right now to talk with them in person, right? Or I'll be there in the morning. I'll talk with them in person. Not many times in my life that something came up where the urgency was I act immediately, and they work on fear and they work on emotion, and we all work very hard for our money, and the last thing we want to do is lose that. But the vast majority of the people we dealt with, once the send button was hit, it was not recoverable. Mm-hmm. It just isn't. They have an account set up somewhere where they're going to put that money in. The second is they close that account, they move on to somebody else. So you know, the caller ID, the check writing are just a few other things that we saw on an everyday basis. It's something we just dealt with. And, you know, the bank employees really do their best. A lot of times we try to sit down and have face-to-face conversation, but these people they're on a mission. And the romance scams, we saw that a lot too, believe it or not. And we would ask questions like, okay, have you met this person face-to-face? And they would kind of avoid that question, but many times they had not. And it was men and women both, right? A lot of it was overseas, not all, but we saw on a regular basis people just buying in and believing and getting defensive. And unfortunately, we were able to save a few. But really, unfortunately, they were wanting to wire transfer. They were wanting to get the money out as quick as they could to help this person. And there was really no talking them out of it. So,
I just wanted to
yeah.
share things what you're saying too. My mother fell for a scam artist. And the strategy that they use that I've learned to share since then is my father passed away. And when dad passed away and mom was a widower, there's scammers that look for that.
Yes.
Look for like, they know that they're alone and they know that they probably inherited money. So when dad died, this very nice man started to call and speak from friends with my mother, just checking on her and he would just be concerned. He would just call her once a week or every other week or so. And then eventually he became, hey, I heard about this opportunity. You'll send me $25, you know, I can turn it into more. And that grew over a period of about a year and a half. She lost something.
Wow.
And it was a bank that finally she went to get a loan from a bank. And the bank was concerned with her brother and said, hey, we're a little concerned what's going on here. And she was getting cash. Taking out, she was asking for a loan that particular time. She would put it in an envelope. She would mail it to a warehouse in North Carolina. And she would call the nice man. She would give the tracking number. And then he would rerun it out of the country and walk it. So these like that they're professionals.
They are.
Really, really good.
They are very, very good. You know, my mother-in-law has been a widow for about 4 years and didn't want to make the call to me, knowing me. But somebody called her in the middle of the day, caught her. She lives alone, just caught her off guard, started talking, asking questions. The next thing she started doing was giving him her account number, her routing number. The first question I asked is, why did you give him that number? And her only answer that she could come up with was, and she was distraught and devastated and crying. And she's like, I just don't know. He just seemed, he was in control. He was confident. He was telling me somebody had my account number, said he was from the bank, and I just gave it out. And very, very, these people, you know, I've mentioned this before, and it even says on the flyer, they're professionals. They're as professional at what they do as anybody you'll ever meet. They can be very empathetic. They can also be very to the point of your account is in jeopardy. And any of us at what age who doesn't want to hear that, right? But especially a senior living on their own, maybe a widower, that's all the money they have left now. And yet get talked into moving money to an account that they're not going to be on or something. It got to be an everyday occurrence for us. We saw it every day. And
One-
as well that I learned through that process and working at Center Well Senior Primary Care, it's a tool I've shared. We have this conversation a lot with our seniors as well. Is there's a phone called a pin wheel. If you're a caregiver and you have a loved one you're taking care of, Alzheimer's, dementia, maybe my mother, that was an issue. Called Pinwheel. So it's a phone you can get. You can buy the phone. You can do a monthly subscription, and you control everything. You control what calls are coming in, what calls are going out. So it stops the scammers from being able to get to them because only approved phone numbers in that Pinwheel phone can they get. So you can program that phone for son, daughter, neighbor, whoever to be able to call, and for them to be able to call. The scammers can't get into it. So a Pinwheel phone is a tool that can be used to help.
that's good.
One of the fastest growing scams right now is coming through texts. And I don't know how many of you got the text a couple of months ago that you owed a toll. And if you didn't pay it, that your license was going to be discontinued, you know, blah, blah, blah. I had two people call me. One of them lived in Johnson County. He hadn't been out of Johnson County in 8 years. And he called me and he said, I got this thing that says I owe a toll. Do you think it's a scam? I said, last I knew, we don't have any toll roads in Johnson County. Okay. But a couple of years ago at Christmas, I was watching a Hallmark movie. And I was riveted to that because you never know how those things are going to end, right? My And then the next step is going to cost you money. So when those red flags are there, you can bet it's a scam. Hang up or talk to somebody. And if people don't want to talk to their kids because they're afraid they'll take away their independence. So, but a lot of times they'll talk to friends, and I tell caregiver groups a lot, people talk to you guys more than they talk to their family about what's going on in their life. So when you hear something like that, get a hold of someone. You know, maybe it's the sheriff, maybe it's the minister. Several years ago, I did a presentation at Morristown, and the minister there said, one of my parishioners or one of my congregation told me, he came in all excited. He said, I'm going to be able to pave my driveway. And he said, the guy lived back along gravel road, and he knew that that was going to be expensive. So he said, how are you going to be able to do that? And the guy said, well, I've won a sweepstakes, and all I have to do is save up enough money, $1,500 to send to them, and then they're going to bring the sweepstakes money to me. And the minister was smart enough to know that the guy wouldn't take a warning from him. So he said, you know what? There's probably going to be tax ramifications if you win that money. So I would talk to your lawyer or to an accountant and see how they would advise you. That was all he said. And the next time he saw the guy, he said, how's that driveway coming along? He said, I'm not going to get it. He said it was a scam. I talked to my lawyer and he talked me out of it. But if there's somebody that they will listen to besides you, because they don't listen to their kids. I never listened to my mom, and she wouldn't have listened to me. But there's somebody that they trust. Maybe their minister, maybe their banker, maybe a friend. I heard somebody say, this was with the FBI, that said, you know, check out what they're saying with a friend before you act and see what they think. Call the sheriff, call the local police, call the attorney general's office. You know, don't do anything on the moment. There's even fake fraud alerts where you'll get a text that says, your Chase bank account has been compromised. Click on this link so we can help you solve it. No, don't click on any links. Anything that comes to you without you initiating it is suspect. No, the Social Security office is not going to call you. The IRS is not going to call you. You have a better chance of getting a call from Prince Harry than you do from Medicare. Okay, they don't call. They still work in snail mail.
Yep.
So, you know, we're in an age, and don't even get me talking about AI, because that scares the pants off me, and I'm not afraid of anything. But with AI, they could take him and make it look like he is saying anything, like, you know, don't go to Chase Bank, or take all your money and go to Chase Bank. They can do anything. And I've seen an AI video of Morgan Freeman saying stuff I know Morgan Freeman would not say, but it looked exactly like he was saying it, and he was promoting something.
Yeah, I would just add really quick, this is how they stay ahead. So if you're like our family, there is an Amazon truck in the driveway every day, right?
Yeah.
My neighbors thought I worked at Amazon. There is an Amazon truck there.
Yeah.
I won't say which one's doing the ordering, but she is in the audience, so I'll stay safe. But the newest thing is this, and I just read this today, by the way, just today, and I had gotten 2 emails. Something I'd ordered on Amazon has now been recalled. First I've heard of this. Sounds very legitimate, and guess what? They send me a link. Well, I know from my standpoint, from what I do, I'm not touching any links. I happened to read today an article that this is the newest Amazon link, and think of all the people who buy Amazon and all of the things you buy. Seems very legitimate, right? A few weeks ago, I got up on a Saturday morning, flipped my laptop open, and my laptop was flashing. I had never seen this before, and it was honking, and it said, call Apple Care right away at this number. The only thing I didn't know what to do. I didn't know why this was happening. The only thing I know is I'm not calling that number. So I take my phone and I look up Apple Care on my phone, and I called the right Apple Care, and the guy's like, I can hear it. I know exactly what's going on. We're just answering these calls right and left. He goes, hit this button. We got the honking stop. We got the flashing stop. He goes, it's just a website. You're completely safe. There's no virus on your computer. However, if you'd have called that number, they'd have asked, which Apple does this, by the way, if you ever had Apple Care, they say, can I get on your computer and look? Well, since I called them, I felt good with that. But he said these people would have done the same thing. You would have said yes, and millions of people are doing that. They now have control of your computer. They can put anything on they want. They can take anything off. I say all that to just say, anytime you're sent a link or a phone number, don't do it. You reach out to the right place. That's the difference. But no matter what, the links, there's always a link or there's always a phone number. Don't do that. So.
I have one last question. I'm sure everybody's taking notes. This is a good sign. Everybody's concerned. So in our situation, one of the things that we did is we put Tammy's name on her father's account to be able to track if anything was going in or out.
That's good.
Is that something that you all recommend?
I would highly recommend that. I know sometimes they feel like they might lose some independence, or there's a double-edged sword there, not to be positive and negative all in the same sentence. We didn't get to tonight, but I probably have 5 hours of material and stories on some scammers or someone you're related to, or it's the caregiver that you hire. And we see that a lot. And we would see them come in. We have special training for that, where you come in and the person's doing all the talking. So we come in together, she's my mom, or I say she's my aunt, or I'm her nurse, and we're watching who's doing all the talking. Is Barb looking comfortable, uncomfortable? And at the bank, we would actually try to separate this person out. Not always easy, and they wouldn't allow us to do that sometimes. We would try to separate this person out. But there is a whole scam that we haven't talked about, family caregiver. And family sometimes was the most notorious at this, taking money from mom or grandma. They would say anything. They knew the situation. To answer your question, I would say yes. I would say, if at all possible, be on their accounts with them, monitor it, help them with technology. I had young people and older people, both scared of technology and both good at technology. But to be able to have access to look at it at home at any point is a benefit. Check writing, a little dangerous these days, but I look at my account, probably because I was an employee, I looked at my account every day or every other day, but I also knew if something was happening that wasn't mine, I could act on it quickly. And with no technology, the fear is you could run a period of time and money could be depleted. So what would you say?
No, I just, while I'm having my first cup of coffee, I check my investments, my bank accounts, my credit card. All right. One day I got on my credit card, on my bank account, and somebody had withdrawn $29,000 from it. Interestingly enough, that was $26,000 more than I had in the account. But I called the bank right away and they got on it right away. Where if I had waited, if I hadn't been on that account, if I'd waited for the paper statement that I still get, would I read it? Yeah, I just put 2 paper statements in the pile to go in the file. I may get around to reading it, I may not. But yes, check your accounts every day.
Yeah.
Because if somebody gets your credit card and does naughty stuff with it, as I say, that's a technical term, then you'll know it and you can stop it before it gets, and read your credit card statements like it's a Bible, I swear. Because sometimes they'll do, and look at all the numbers. Don't look at just the big numbers. Sometimes they'll do a $1 or a $2 hit to see if they get by with it. And if they get by with it, then the hits grow. And I had a friend who saw something that wasn't legit on his credit card statement. He found out it had been going out of his account for 7 months and he hadn't noticed it. And they wouldn't go back that full 7 months. So
we did see that a lot. So everybody's getting away from paper statements, which is okay. Technology, there's people using technology for really bad things. You personally can use technology to protect yourself by looking at it. But a lot of times people would come in with exact situations like that. And they'd say, this has been going on for a year. I didn't even notice it.
yeah.
And banks can only go back to try to refund so many months, right? And then there's a problem. So help them with technology, and then don't be ashamed. A lot of people are ashamed and don't come in, and they sit on it for a while. And the longer you wait, the chances, I know I say, are minimal that you're going to get some money back. But on credit card accounts, you can, do fraud, a fraud claim. But the longer you wait, it's not your friend. You're hurting yourself. So immediately, and Barbara said this many times, notify someone right away. You got to tell somebody right away. Go to your bank, call them, whatever. But yes.
I'm going to piggyback off of Leo real quick, just because I've worked with the Alzheimer's Association, and I am not an elder law attorney, so this is not a plug for or a commercial, but like, we're all hearing these scams. However, if you are a caregiver of someone with dementia, all of you are here, you need to have a POA, and that's a power of attorney. So everybody thinks, oh my gosh, I have a will, or I need to have a healthcare representative. Sometimes they forget about that power of attorney, because if you are incapacitated, she was just saying that the gentleman that lives in her senior community, and they literally call him with his credit card out, ready to give this information, and they had to take his phone away.
Yeah.
So you just want to protect yourself, because even if you are able to make cognitive decisions, but you are bedbound and can't get out to go to a bank or do those things, if you don't have a POA in place, it gets really, really hard. Now we have online banking and they can do that stuff.
Sure,
but,
sure.
So just a little plug there to make sure you have that power of attorney in place, and then that will also help if you need to have access to a bank account that you're not on, so that you can monitor those accounts. Anybody watch the news yesterday and hear about in Zionsville where someone took advantage of someone with dementia and had them sign? And it's real. My husband, who is an attorney, not an elder law attorney, has a very similar case where they went to someone with dementia and had them bought some property, and the property was probably 30% less than, or more, only 30% of what it was valued. So, get a POA, make sure you have your power of attorney in place. If you have a loved one you're caring for and they don't have a power of attorney, have that hard conversation with them. Yeah.
I'd just say a couple other things. You know, if you want to stay abreast of the kind of scams that are going on, and not on a day like this, well, maybe depending on how hot it is, but go to the FTC website, go to the Better Business Bureau website. They do stuff by region. Go to the ARP website. They have fraud alerts that go out. So you can stay on top of stuff. Almost every media has fraud stuff on their websites. I know CBS does. I've seen a lot of material from the various media stations. So if you want to stay on top of it, you can do some browsing when you've got some free time. I heard a guy from the FBI several years ago say the best way to stop this is to educate people. That's what I do. That's what we're doing today. I have materials back there. I do presentations like this all the time around this area, central Indiana. And if you are a part of any other group that wants a speaker, a church group, a seniors group, I've been a Sunday school lesson. I work weekends. It doesn't matter. I have my cards with me. Give me a call. I'd be glad to come and do a presentation for your group. And I can talk, like I said, I talked before senior movies. That's about a 5-minute talk. The longest I've ever talked was to a widows group, and it was an hour and a half, because they were very engaged. They were very concerned. They were very scared, and rightfully so. So please reach out. We could probably even do a tag team again. We would do that. Yeah.
I would just say real quick, I would add is there are a lot of great resources out there. Go to your bank's website. So I just looked up, I know at Chase, we have a great Chase Security Center. I looked up Capital One. Most large banks are going to have a security something on their website. You don't have to be a client to have access to this. You just go to their website. Chase.com, go to the Security Center. Capital One has something very similar. But there's also a national elder fraud hotline. Adult Protective Services, I found, where they focus on fraud from family and caregivers. There's a whole organization that works with them. The American Banker, the ABA, the American Bankers Association, on their website has a great tool called Protect Older Americans from Financial Exploitation. Again, that's the American Bankers Association. And then, as much as I hate to say it, I'm an AARP member, and they send me their magazine. They send me their tips. But what I have learned is that every newsletter, every email, everything they send has got something about fraud on it. And I just happen to still have this, but the March and April 2026 magazine that they send out is the whole magazine is about elder fraud. And there is some great stuff in here. It's really good stuff. So AARP, obviously, a lot of people familiar with them. But, we talked about, Barb, that it's tough to get people not to answer their phones. But that's one thing I had was don't answer unknown numbers, right? I can always call them back, but picking up might mean a whole different thing. Update your passwords frequently. Freeze your credit reporting agencies. It's most of the time you can go onto one of the 3 major agencies and freeze all 3. They make it pretty simple, meaning that if you're gonna go buy a car, get a credit card, you can unfreeze it before you do, but other people can't go out and get those in your name. Review your bank account regularly online. Like get them online. Online is not bad. Online can instead save you really. And so get them online. And like she said, look daily. And because the sooner you report something, the sooner we can get a hold of it, the better your chances are of getting things back. The longer it waits. And again, fear. And when my mother-in-law called me that day, she absolutely did not want to talk about what happened. She was so ashamed. I tried to help her with that. She was so ashamed, so devastated. But because she did act quickly, most of her money was salvaged. It wasn't a large number. And I got her to her bank right away and it was salvageable. But the longer you wait is not your friend. And so you feel terrible, you're embarrassed, you don't want to tell anybody, let alone a family member, you know. But the quicker we can get a hold of you, the better. So
One thing, I'll ask you to verify your thinking on this. I always tell people, and this is something I learned from Greg Zeller when I worked at the Attorney General's office, is use a credit card, not a debit card. Because a credit card is insured. And if somebody gets a hold of your credit card number somehow, and it's very easy for them to do, that's a whole nother subject. But if somebody gets a hold of your credit card and makes an unauthorized purchase, you can call the bank and they'll stop it. If you have a debit card, that's your money.
That's exactly
and
right.
I talked to the president of a local bank in Franklin, and I said, this is the story I tell. Am I telling right? He said, Barb, we offer debit cards, but he said, I won't have one. He said, we offer a 2-week interest-free loan to people whose debit card has been accessed without authorization. But I didn't think to ask him what happens after that. Because if somebody gets a hold of your debit card and uses it, and you call the bank, they'll say, we will help you get your money back. They don't have any skin in the game. That's not their money. If it's an insured card, they're ready to help you.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. I know we love our debit cards, and I've had people say to me, well, I don't use mine as a debit card because I don't put the numbers in. I said, do you get a bill at the end of the month, or does it come right out of your bank account? Oh, it comes right out of my bank account. Then, honey, I don't care what you call it, it's a debit card.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of things we can do to protect. Like, I don't know how many of you know what a security freeze is, but that freezes your credit history. And if somebody gets your information, and trust me, Greg Zeller used to say everybody's information is out there. It's probably on the dark web. I heard an FBI guy say, for God's sake, don't go try to see you if you're on the dark web, because then you will be. But a security freeze stops somebody who has your name, address, social security number, which is all out there somewhere, from opening an account in your name, changing the address, running the account up to the max, and not paying the bill, and then you're stuck with it. So with a security freeze, that stops, because nobody's going to open an account in your name if they don't know you have a habit of paying your bills. So a security freeze is a good thing. It costs nothing. It takes a minute to set up. It takes a minute to thought. If you want to raise your limit, or if you're going to buy that red Corvette you've been looking at, whatever, and then you can close it back down. So a security freeze is a good thing. It ought to be on the people you care for, because they're not as likely to look at, what the transactions that are going on, and they're not as likely to need money to go out and buy that red Corvette. So get a security freeze on yourself, everybody in your family. I talked to people who were in the foster care, and they were putting credit freezes on foster care kids' social security number because they're involved. I've talked to people at the federal prison in Terre Haute, and they were very interested in a security freeze because the people that they were close to before they were sentenced had access to all their information. So it's free. Do it. Just look up security freeze on the Attorney General's website, or go to Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion, look it up and see how to put a credit freeze. I've not found that they'll do it for all three. My experience was you had to go to each one, and then you have to go independently. If you go to someone and want to buy something or get a loan, ask them which credit reporting agency they use. They don't use all three. You don't need to go in and relieve all three. Just ask them which one they use and then lift the security freeze, and you can set a time limit. You can say, I want it lifted today and I want it closed down in 3 days. If you're buying a home, probably be a month. But you're in control then, and what we need is the ability to be in control.
That's great. I'm so glad you guys talked about all the situations, scared the heck out of all of us, and then gave us some ways to try to curb the opportunities.
Right.
So thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I did. The thing I walked away from tonight is I am red meat for a lot of very evil forces
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
I would like to know, especially with the Supreme Court ruling that just came down, it's a 5-2 ruling on elder care and elder law, and there's a whole thing in that on disrupting fraud. Any hope there that that might happen? And secondly, what are we doing as a country, as a fill in the blank, to absolutely run the rod through these guys and on their way to the gallows pull their fingernails out? This is just so discouraging.
There's not much that can be done because they're calling from Afghanistan or Jamaica or wherever. They're outside of our jurisdiction. That's just like every year I'll hear a politician say, I'm going to stop the robocalls. I've heard that for 25 years, and I'll hear it for the next 25 if I live that long. But those robocalls are coming from outside the country, and we don't have any jurisdiction outside. It would take the telephone companies to take physical action and money to stop those calls. They can do that, but they also have an obligation through the FCC of putting calls through quickly. So that kind of complicates things.
There does seem like there's very little. And I've mentioned a couple of times, every time we make advances at the bank, I feel like anytime we make advances, I feel like they're one step ahead.
Yeah.
Your bank may have, especially if you're a larger bank, I know a couple do, Chase has what they call Credit Journey if you're a client there. Capital One has, I forget the name of it, where they also monitor your score. I get emails and texts from them. I think it's better than Credit Karma, I belong to Credit Karma, and they send me, hey, you're eligible for a credit card. Here's your score. When it's your bank, they usually tell you if there's a major disruption on there. It's free. I think it's free even if you're not a client to have it. But education. We cannot educate ourselves, our parents, and our loved ones enough. And it's really any age, because we talk a lot about elder, but I had younger people come in too who had been scammed. So it's constant education, constant reading, staying above. Starting out, maybe, hey, is this phone call or text a scam? Start out that it is and work your way back, right? Instead of going the other direction. I don't know, but we had so much education at work to help people. We did help a lot of people. We weren't able to help a lot of other people. And it's very disheartening because I know the person that's sitting across from was somebody's mom, somebody's grandma. And that makes me think of my own mother-in-law, my own aunt, and it's education. It's just being, helping them be alert and aware, and don't click, don't call, maybe don't pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, we appreciate this. As you can tell, we'll probably talk for another hour.
Or more, quite a
second episode in fall, so we'll consider that, because I think there's a lot of information out there. Clearly, if you have questions, you still have some time to talk to them. I want to plug next month, July, the heat of the July summer. We've got the next topic, which is, I think, equally as sensitive, is about who's got the keys. Having that conversation about keys and driving and being safe and being smart. And so we've got an expert coming in to talk about that. She's through the Brain Center and has had lots of experiences about the driving process. And So hopefully you'll return, tell your friends, tell your family. And again, thank you to Noble and to Bar, the time they gave us tonight. So
Thank you for having
appreciate
us.
that. Thank you.